Lawrence Neal here, and welcome back to High Intensity Business, the podcast where we talk about how to grow your hit business. Get more members for your high intensity training studio when you join Hit Business Membership. The membership is designed to help you grow your hit business fast. You'll get coaching from me, access to hundreds of hit business systems, blueprints, checklists, and frameworks. You'll also get access to a great community of hit business entrepreneurs and connect on a monthly group call with other members to help grow your business. Join now over at highintensitybusiness.com/join. This is episode 401, and this is with Mike Petrella, and it's called How to Set Up a New Hit Studio for Success. This is a throwback episode that was actually published inside Hit Business Membership in December 2018. But it's a timeless episode with some great principles and some great strategies for opening a new high-intensity training business for success. So in this podcast, Mike Petrella, who's the owner of STG Strength and Power, describes back in 2018 how he's going to open and transition to a large single 4,000 square foot facility in Ontario, Canada, and which now houses over 100 amazing exercise machines, including Nautilus, Medex, Pendulum, Hammer Strength, etc. So this was the month or two before Mike actually opened the location. So you get the real insight into Mike's planning process and mindset before he opened. That location's obviously been open now and open for some time, and it's going great, and he's doing great with the business. And obviously we have documented some of that on the podcast since. And in this podcast, again, you're going to get a really good insight into Mike's mindset and planning process. He goes into, the build phase, planning, logistics, the marketing launch. It talks about how to find the right location, effective marketing tactics, how to get your first few customers, how to decide on facilities like showers and changing rooms and toilets, how to source machines and think about that side of the business, and much, much more. This really is a complete business checklist for successfully opening up your studio. So I get a lot of questions from you guys in terms of how to open and start a high intensity training business. So I think you're going to get so much value out of this. And even if you're not starting, but maybe you're moving location, or you are opening a second location, I think this is going to be really handy for you. And frankly, if you run a hit business, let's face it, you're probably going to enjoy this podcast and you're probably going to learn a whole ton from Mike. So without any further ado, please enjoy the podcast, episode 401, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, so welcome everyone. This is a live Q&A with Mike Petrella, who is the owner of Strength and Power, his strength training facility in Ontario, Canada. Am I getting that right, Mike?
That is correct.
Good. I'm glad I got that right. So I'm really excited to do this Q&A with you today, Mike, because this is a topic that has been shown. There's been a lot of interest shown in creating some content on this for a while, and that is the focus on how do you actually set up a new high intensity training studio to make sure that it's successful. What is the thought process that goes into planning, location, target market, the promotional and launch phase. I've got various members who are in various phases of their business. Maybe they are looking to start their first studio. Maybe they are opening a second studio and they're thinking about what they need to think about before they do that. And also, in some cases, they're moving. So they might be moving. In one particular member is going from Central America to California. So he's thinking about, what do I need to think about? What do I need to check off the list before I move? So I'm going to be trying to ask you a bunch of questions that will address those different scenarios. But before I get into that, do you want to just give some context on your particular experience? Because I think your experience is really relevant to this question, because you've opened up multiple locations across your career or throughout your career, and you're currently in the process of consolidating and building one primary location, which is very exciting. So excited to hear about the latest on that. So I thought you'd be perfect to talk about this. So do you want to just give some background in terms of your experience in this industry and what's happening for you right now in terms of this new location?
Well, we started back in 2006, and that was in my parents' basement. So I don't know if I necessarily consider that to be a commercial location. We were training people, and we had 10 Nautilus machines and a barbell to go with it, and that worked just fine. We then moved to our first commercial location. I think it was about a year and a half later. And that was the next town over for those who know Southern Ontario. It was in Cambridge, Ontario. We started off with a room that was 1,700 to 1,800 square feet. It was somewhere around there. We had 2 complete circuits of Nautilus, and we expanded on our free weights. There was a room right beside that the owner was using for his own kind of workout area. Actually, he was a martial artist, and we eventually took that over to add another 2,000 square feet. So that was a nice big space. And in addition to having all of our weights, we actually had about 1,000 square feet of mats for martial arts classes, which we had there. And for a short period of time, we actually had a full-on boxing wrestling ring until the insurance company got wind of it, and they shut that down pretty quick. Unfortunately, that space was a leased space, and the owner of the property, they had some financial difficulties during the recession, and they had to kick out a bunch of us small businesses. There were about 4 or 5 businesses in this building that we were in. So I opened up my first commercial space that I actually owned. So we called that the third incarnation of the gym, and that was just 1,000 square feet. It was just a steel building, wide open space. I think we had 14-foot ceilings. It was really nice. And we operated there for a couple of years, and that was really good. But again, we wanted to have a larger floor space for more equipment and also to accommodate more trainers. In end of 2011, beginning 2012, I took possession of the building that we're in now that we call our Main Street location. And that's a 2,000 square foot building. And that's where we've been primarily operating since then. The old gym that was the 1,000 square feet, at one point we were operating 2. We kind of called that our overflow facility, but it quickly turned into my storage area because I knew I wanted to build something even bigger. And my nice laneways and my nice equipped gym eventually became jam-packed with equipment. And we are fully completed, and we're just moving everything in and kind of getting ready for the new year. We have a 4,000 square foot commercial facility, which will be our 5th facility, 4th one that was commercial. And it will be the biggest setup that we've had. It will be owned by myself. It won't be leased, so I don't have to worry about getting kicked out. And it will have close to 100 pieces of mostly Nautilus, Med-X, and pendulum equipment, along with a full assortment of free weights.
So exciting! You must be so excited to go live with that.
We cannot wait. I've had some equipment that have been in storage containers since the Cambridge gym, which pretty much ended almost, I think about 8 years ago now. And I've had a couple pieces that I've bought over the last 2 years that never made it onto the Main Street gym floor because I knew it was going to go into the big facility, and you don't really want to move something in to move it back out a year later. Right. So even just for my own workouts, we've been playing around with stuff, and we've had it up on Instagram and Facebook, and it's been a lot of fun.
Do you want to just talk a little bit about the rationale for having one big location? Because I know that you were kind of thinking about different ways to grow your business. And I know that a lot of people go for the approach of, well, maybe not a lot of people, but people that are thinking about growing are thinking about smaller studios. But you talked to me before about why you decided to go for one big location. So did you want to talk about the kind of mindset that you've got around that?
Sure. I think either way is good. Either way, you're growing. I got some friends, and they're friends of yours too, that do the multiple locations, and that's fantastic. And to my knowledge, they're doing very well. So I don't want to discourage anybody from doing that. I just kind of like to do things my own way at times. One of the I don't know if I discussed this with you last time, but I've had the privilege to speak with, and become friends with Roger Schwab. He's become another one of my mentors, which is just fantastic. And Arthur Jones actually told him to open a single facility and make it the best that he possibly can. And I think his mainline health and fitness that he ran for years, along with Joe Cirilli's Gainesville were probably the two benchmark facilities in our high intensity world. And now Roger's doing his X-Force facility in Philadelphia, which I haven't got down to see. I plan to, and it looks fantastic. So that certainly weighed in on me. That that was advice right from Arthur Jones, even though it wasn't directly to me. But the other thing is, at least where I'm from, it's a smaller area, and I went to school around here. I played my hockey around here. My dad's business is around here, so you kind of know a lot of people in the area. And keeping at least the main facility in the area, the big facility in this area, really made sense to me. And I wanted to have a facility where all of my toys were under one roof, so we could really put some fantastic workouts together for people. It's not to say that at some point in the future I don't branch back out to another town, but for right now, the goal was really to get everything I have under one facility and kind of build that super facility for our clients.
And the other thing as well is you're quite young, aren't you? What are you, 34? Is that right?
I'm 33.
33. Sorry, I wish I'd gone one lower. But no, I think that's important to note, because I was quite surprised that you were 33. Not because you don't look young, but because you always assume a certain amount of progress someone's made, and certainly the way you came across when we met at the conference, that they're a certain age. So that I think is important to know, because you've clearly done very well in a relatively short space of time. Well, I say short space of time. I suppose you've been doing this since your when you first starting out? Were you in your kind of early 20s?
Yep. So 2006 was when I bought my first two machines from Bill Casto down in, he was in Rochester at the time, Rochester, New York. And I brought him home to my parents' basement and set him up. And that it all kind of started from there. And later on that year, I was training the majority of my hockey team out of there. I had a couple of clients that had nothing to do with hockey as well, and they were coming to my parents' house. And I believe the first year I started doing my IART certification. That's when Brian Johnson still owned it. Mike Lepowski has it now. And I know I was training people before I got the certification. I think I got the certification in January 2007 is when I actually passed the final on that. So I was training people, building the gym in 06, writing the certification 06, and then by 07, right at the beginning, I had it with the IART, if I'm not mistaken.
Cool. Okay. Good stuff. Yeah. I think reason I just point that out is because I just think another reason why I think people should really pay attention to what you have to say on this one. And also, you mentioned it, Bill Casto, really popular character among the high intensity training business owners when it comes to purchasing equipment. Super knowledgeable guy when it comes to all things exercise machines. And actually, for the members, many of you will know this. I've just included a category in the membership called recommended services under wanted. So if you go there, there's all of the services that everyone recommends in the high intensity training industry for equipment, marketing services, courses, conferences, all of that stuff. And his details are listed under there should you want to get in touch. Okay, Mike, let's dig into this. So talk to me about when you first thought about, or decided on, I'm going to open one big location. What was the thought process, and what was the order of things that you addressed in the planning stages for that?
Well, the thought process to start off with was, as you know, I love my exercise machines, and they take up a lot of space. So I already had the equipment in place. In fact, we're starting to move everything over now, and we are relatively certain that we're going to be able to get everything into this space, but we're actually not 100% certain on that. So the first thing was, I guess, making sure that you had enough equipment to fill it. So if someone was doing the same process as me, there's no sense building, a 20,000 square foot facility and you have 12 Nautilus machines. So making sure that you have enough equipment to actually utilize the space was probably the first consideration. The next, in my case, was making sure that we had a spot to build. in my area, buying something already existing would have been easier. There unfortunately wasn't an option that I liked. So we were lucky enough to get some commercial land, and we were able to figure out all the zoning and figure out all the setbacks, and that is a bit of a process. So for anyone out there listening who's thinking about building, hopefully your area is a little bit easier than mine, but budget months worth of time to go through all the zoning, go through all the setbacks, if you need any variances, this kind of thing. And understand that it's not a couple week process. You'll be a few months into that. Once we had that all figured out, of course, we had to get a builder. And luckily for us, we had a builder who built my old gym, the 1,000 square foot facility. And that company had also done a renovation for my parents' business. So we had dealt with them twice before. So we had the builder lined up. We knew who we were going to use for that. So those were the main things to start off the process. I guess if you were going to lease a space, it's probably a little bit easier in terms of it's already built, and figuring out how much space you need, how much overhead that you can handle. And in most cases, it's probably going to need some renovations. There's very few gyms that I know of that have, like friends of mine that have just walked into a space, said, "Hey, this is perfect," and maybe just put out a coat of paint and they're ready to go. Most of the places, walls had to be torn down, walls had to be put up, and they had to go through that process. So certainly having some sort of contractor or renovator, assuming you aren't doing the work yourself, is going to be key.
Cool. In terms of the location itself, I'd actually covered this a little bit with Luke Carlson on a separate podcast, but I'd love to hear your perspective on what you prioritize when it comes to a new location, in terms, because some people think it's important to factor in the amount of footfall and visibility and accessibility. And I just wondered which of these factors you thought about in your new facility, or panning back, how you kind of rank some of these things and think about those just in general, and what you would advise the members who are opening HIT studios, how they think about those factors.
I think it's all important, but I don't think it's necessary. And what I mean by that is the 1,000 square foot facility that we ran, it is almost, you can kind of see it from the road when you drive by, but it's almost non-visible from the road. And we never had a sign out front. So everything we did was on word of mouth. And very quickly, we became full there and outgrew that facility. At the time, it was kind of a part-time venture, and it very quickly became a full-time job career. So it certainly would have been nice to have more visibility and more foot traffic, but we were able to get full without really having any of that. I'll have to see if I can kind of take a picture from the road and give you a visual of what I'm talking about. When we moved to the Main Street location, and as the name would suggest, it is on the main street in our town, our visibility went up substantially. The amount of cars driving by who could see us went up substantially. And we absolutely did see more people just walking in saying, "Hey, we've seen the sign. We want to know what it's about." But at least as far as what we do certainly get a lot of people that come in. I think some of the other HIT facilities are like this, where people come in and they want to know if we sell a monthly membership, or they can come to use the facility as they want. And of course we don't. And I know a lot of the other people in the community, they don't as well. So we get foot traffic, but it isn't necessarily the people that we are looking for, because we only do personal training as far as my facility goes. So it's important, and I do like it. And we have seen an increase in business. And then moving on to the new facility that we're building, it is on the corner of two highways. So we're not going to see too many people just walking down the street. There's no sidewalks like where my place is now, but we are going to have tens of thousands more cars per day driving by. So I do expect that to increase the business from a visibility standpoint. We are happy that there is more visibility, there'll be more people driving by. But I am still a firm believer that if you have a good product and something that people can get behind and people believe in, that people will drive for that. whether you
For sure.
have a retail product that you're selling that's one of a kind, or whether you're just doing something that no one else is doing, people will drive for it. So it's nice to have good visibility, but if you only have the option to set up an industrial park because the rent is cheap and people are all going to have to drive to you and they can't really walk to you, I still truly believe that if you have the right product, it's going to take care of itself.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Jack, I can see that you've joined the Q&A. I'm going to ask a few questions, but then I will open it up for you to ask a question yourself. If you're kind of passively listening, then feel free to type the questions into the control panel, and I'll ask those on your behalf. But all I'll unmute you probably in 10 minutes or so. So just let me know. Question I want to ask you, Mike, is I had a question from a member recently who was a co-owner of a hit business and was interested to understand if colleagues in the industry and obviously people like you have a thought process around how the cost of square feet or meter squared and obviously the overall space of your unit would influence your price point. So you're pricing to customers for one-on-one personal training sessions. If there's some kind of relationship there or some sort of formula, is that something that you can comment on?
I don't have anything like that where I think that if my facility is twice as big or 5 times as big, it necessarily gives me the ability to increase my prices. The way I have done it, and I can get people started from day one to doing this full time, is it won't take long, especially with the internet, to find out what the average price of a personal trainer is in your area. Chances are there's a few big boxes in the area. Their prices will probably be within $5 to $10 an hour or a session, or however they do it, and it'll give you a pretty good idea of where you want to be. Now, when I first started out, I always made sure I wasn't the cheapest. I do believe that you don't necessarily have to price yourself out of the market for people to see that you're good at what you do. But I do believe that if you decide to be the cheapest, people will look at you as the cheapest. So I always thought that my prices to start were relative to the area that I trained in. And again, if you're in downtown New York, you might be charging $150 a session. And realistically, that might sound like a lot to someone who's in a small town, but I guarantee you their overhead is enormous, and the people that their incomes are much larger, and it's still relative to the area. So that's how I get my starting point. I just kind of look in the area and I make a competitive price that, in my opinion, is not over, but certainly is not under as well. Then the way I've always done it is I charge that price until I'm full. And I always say that the free market is going to dictate what you're worth. So once you can no longer bring in new people, and again, assuming you're good at what you do, you should be able to fill your schedule up. Well, then I increase my rates. Now, the one thing I've always done, and people can do it differently, is I don't increase my rates on the people that are already training, as opposed to giving deals on people coming in the door. We're coming up to New Year's now. And we're obviously going to get a big hit in business because we always do. People come, they show up crazy for their New Year's resolutions.
Of course.
I don't do deals for new people coming in. They pay what's on the door rate. But the people that have been with me for 5, 6, 7 years, they still pay what they paid back then. I give the deal to the people that have been not just helping me in terms of the finances of the business, but they're also dedicated to their training. That's very important to me. I have no problem kicking somebody out who's paying me good money if I don't feel that they're here to train hard and to get the most out of the workout. And again, that might not be the smartest business move, but that's still how I personally feel about it. So I give the deal to the people that have been here. And then when I fill up, I up my rates. And then when I have a lot of people that are paying that rate and I'm full again, because there's always turnover, I up my rates again. And, I've probably upped my rates 4 or 5 times in the past, 4 or 5 years. And it just has to do with if I'm full. Now, if all of a sudden I decide to double my rates and I'm not seeing clients anymore, then the market is saying that I'm not worth that kind of money. If I double my rates and I'm full again, then I'm worth it. And I might even be worth a little bit more and have to look at adjusting again. But for the people who have been loyal, I don't up the rates on them.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I suppose another way of looking at that or labeling it is grandfathering your clients, so that they're rewarding them for their loyalty, which is something I do, within my own, within the membership. Exactly the same business model in that sense. So effectively what you're saying there is really the only impact that the overhead of the leasing the facility or well, obviously in your case you're building a site, so will you have some kind of, I guess, a mortgage on that or
no mortgage. I'm terribly opposed to mortgages. We can talk about that another time. But if I can't afford it through the business, then I can't afford it.
Right, got it. Okay, so I guess just to summarize what you're saying then, that even though obviously the overhead and the rent being typically for a lot of these businesses, rent and staff being the biggest overheads, it clearly does influence your price point. But there are many other factors, such as you're looking at your competition and pricing yourself accordingly based on the service you provide and what your competitors are charging in the area. Now, I'd love to hear about how you think about marketing when it comes to your new location. So do you want to talk to me about a little bit of the planning you've put in place with regards to how you're going to market this new facility?
For me, the biggest marketing tool currently, and probably will be for the next few years, is still social media. I think print media is pretty much dead. In our area, all the major newspapers are no longer around. We have one, and it's dwindling at best. There's still some people who do some radio in this area, but again, a lot of people, they do Spotify now. They have streaming for what they listen to. So the only thing that I find that people are still routinely going to day after day, that for a relatively inexpensive price you can get visibility, is social media. So if you aren't on Facebook and you aren't on Instagram, and at this point almost everyone is, I think that's a big mistake. And even I was talking to Bill Casto a couple years ago, who we mentioned earlier, and he hadn't transitioned over to Facebook yet. And I said, Bill, you got to get every machine you get, you need to post on Facebook, because he's had his website for years. And the website's a great resource, got all kinds of information. But most people don't even go on your website anymore. In fact, I heard something not too long ago that more than half of the internet traffic in the world is on Facebook now. So if you think about that, Facebook is now the internet, and the internet is the technology that powers Facebook. So if you're not doing that, if you're not, on social media with some sort of presence, then I think you're really missing the boat on that. And Facebook is certainly a pay for play setup. Whereas if you pay them a couple bucks a month, $50 a month gets you a long way on social media. You can pretty much hit everybody within an hour and a half drive of you that has anything to do with fitness, and they've already compiled everyone's information. So I still think that if you're going to do anything marketing wise, social media is by far the most powerful, and at the same time is by far the cheapest.
Yes, highly targeted and cost effective and underpriced. And probably that's only going to go in one direction. So can you elaborate, like what have you done specifically, like paid ads on Facebook and Instagram? Is that kind of what you're doing at the moment?
You know what? I have not done too much of the paid ads. I dabbled with it a few years ago, and it certainly worked. It certainly got people coming in. One of the reasons we're building the bigger facility is just so we can accommodate more people at this point. I joke around that if we had 30 new people show up, like sign up and want to start training, we realistically would have a hard time accommodating them right now. So I haven't put any paid ads out recently, just because if it was successful, we'd be running around. So we're kind of waiting for the new space, and hopefully get a couple more trainers on the floor as well. So most of what I do is just my own content, and it just has organic reach. But I'll give you for instance here. My father, he owned a car dealership for many years, and he still does, but he's switched over to power sports, which is ATVs and dirt bikes. And he sells Suzuki ATVs, which are just fantastic products. They're built unbelievably well. But in our area, we're about 3 hours from what people around here would call up north, which is like cottage country. And ATVs are much more prevalent up there than they are in our area. Well, he puts these ads out on Facebook, and he has the financing numbers, and in the winter they have things where you can get a plow or a winch, right into the price of it. The Suzuki gives it to you for free. So that's like their winter deals. And he puts it on Facebook, and people drive 3, 4, 5 hours away to his dealership to buy ATVs off of him. And they have passed 3 or 4 dealerships on the way down there to go buy off of him. And it was all done through sponsored Facebook ads. So there's no possible way that these people are driving by. There's no foot traffic there. People are coming in and looking, saying, hey, I want that. He is making deal after deal off of Facebook exposure. And I think his budget's about $50 a month. So if he sells one ATV, it covers several months worth of those ads. Whereas print media and radio media and TV is generally too expensive for most people, unless they're a really, really big company. But he has done a tremendous amount of business from distances that he normally wouldn't have tapped into by using social media.
Yeah, great advice. And that's a really interesting story. I hear it over and over again. Facebook does seem to be the go-to social media platform, especially for high intensity training, because, most of the customer avatar is of an older generation. So typically, above 40 is most of the target market in high intensity training, it would seem. So you're in obviously a strong position. You're going to go into this new facility with already a fairly big clientele. Remind me, is the new location near your existing location, so your current clients will just be able to kind of transition over?
Yeah, it's about 5 minutes down the road. We wanted to stay pretty close. When I first started at the Main Street location in end of 2011, beginning 2012, we probably had about 70 to 80% out of town business, people that were driving more than a half an hour to see me. And a lot of that had to do with the MedX machines. Certainly if people knew about high intensity training. So it took a while for the local business to kind of catch up, I guess you could say. A lot of people that locally, they just stop in because they see the sign. They don't necessarily know what you do or if you're a specialized product. But nowadays, I would say that is reversed, and we have a tremendous amount of local clientele, and that just happens through word of mouth. So at least at this point, it wouldn't have made sense for us to move too far away. I think a lot of the people probably would have still continued to come with us, assuming we didn't move too far, like within that half an hour. I think that's a sweet spot for a lot of people. But being 5 minutes down the road, we're not really going to lose any clientele. And because we're actually going to be at a corner of 2 highways, the vast majority of our clients travel on one of those 2 highways to see us. So they're actually going to be a little bit faster getting to us. It's going to be a little bit closer for them. So a lot of people are excited that way.
Cool. So even more accessible then. So no downside really. And I'll just say, if people are interested in learning more about reviewing target market, talent in terms of personal trainers and staff, demographics, psychographics for your target market, and real estate agents for your new location. I did a piece of content with Luke on exactly that. So you can find it in the membership, and I'll also link it in the thread for this, because I want to move on to another question. As Jack has politely told me, he is passively listening. So I'll run through the rest of these questions here. How have you planned, Mike, for facilities? Things like, if at all, things like changing rooms, showers, toilets, etc.
Well, the one piece of advice that I can give on that for the owner is you always want it to be, clean and accessible, but you don't want it to be too much. And what I mean by that is people like to hang around gyms. If you go to any commercial gym, you'll see people taking half an hour long showers. If you have saunas or hot tubs, you'll see people sitting in them all day. And anything to do with water is expensive. I've seen gyms go out of business because they decide to put a pool in. And that pool, the upkeep on it to have people in it all day is just a tremendous amount of money. So you certainly want to have clean, accessible bathroom, clean, accessible changing rooms, but it needs to be bare minimum. In the new bathroom, it will just be, they'll have a small bench in there, a small area where you could say lay your duffel bag or lay your gym clothes down so you get changed. But it's not a tremendously big room. I've never had showers. I'm not putting showers into this facility. And just kind of keep it clean and accessible, but keep it minimal, because at the end of the day, you want people coming in on a timely fashion, and then ultimately you need them to leave in a timely fashion, because if you're busy, you just have people coming in nonstop, and you don't want to be too much overlap. A lot of the facilities out there are smaller in nature. I don't know anyone who's running a 10,000 square foot facility right now. So, you need to keep the flow going. And I think that happens with making things somewhat on the minimal side for that.
Yeah, and you're quite right. So I suppose depending on the type of facility you have, the size and the number of clients, etc., that you can obviously flex up and down these facilities. I think even I've heard that some people suggest that don't even have. Obviously you'll probably need a bathroom, at least for yourself. But it's not imperative to necessarily have changing rooms and showers. At all. In some cases, if you're really starting off with a very small facility and really bootstrapping, would you say there's the option for that as well for some people?
At the 1,000 square foot facility that I had, we call that the old gym right now. So at the old gym, we actually were not allowed to put water to that building. It was on a residential piece of property as opposed to a commercial piece of property. And the funny thing was the county, they were worried that I was going to potentially live in the garage, which my argument to them was, if I'm paying taxes, I should be able to do whatever the heck I want with it. But I had no intention of living in a garage. So they, by bylaw, would not allow me to have water. So for that gym, we operated there for a couple of years. There was no water, there was no toilet, there was no bathroom, there was no change room. So people did show up ready to go, and they would have their shorts on or their tearaway pants or whatever. And we did quite well there, and we outgrew that facility, and it worked just fine. So certainly when we got to a facility that had a bathroom, it was a much improved thing. And I wouldn't necessarily say that you shouldn't be looking, like you should look to have a bathroom. It certainly makes your day easier as a trainer because you're there all day. But is it 100% necessary? Well, for us, it wasn't. And for us, it was more about focusing on the space, focusing on the equipment, and focusing on the workout. So certainly you want to have a bathroom, but if it is minimal, I think that's actually preferred. And if it's one of these things where you don't have one, but you still have a chance to get started otherwise, my advice is still to get started.
Cool. And what about things like an office and reception area and things like that?
So in the current facility, we just have an office that's in the back, and it works just fine. And it's nice to have a bit of an office because you have an area to sit down and talk to clients and potential clients when they come in. At the new gym, we built the space wide open. So we're building an office that's kind of just portable walls that we could actually move around if we want to. It's just going to have a desk with a few chairs and a computer. It's not going to be anything elaborate, just enough to have an area to sit down. I have never had a gym with a reception area. I think it's a nice touch. And certainly if you have the space to do it, it's a nice touch. But I don't think it's necessary again, especially if you're just getting started out. I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. And so that's a quick one, really. And I guess, again, it sounds like it's interesting. A lot of this, with regard to facilities, office space, reception desk, etc. It's kind of like, well, the answer is it depends. It depends on the type of experience you're trying to create, the size of the location, even down to things like the length of the sessions. I remember talking to Doug Holland recently, and he's very bullish on, quick in and out, 30-minute workouts. When you walk out that door, the next person's waiting and you got to go out to your car. Like it's very much like that. And so that I can see how it's quite interesting, actually, because that type of efficiency marries up quite nicely with a minimalist operation in terms of the facilities, which will save us all money, or save you money, I should say, to the person that's thinking about starting out or has a small location, if that makes sense. So yep. Next question I want to ask is with regard to equipment. Now, you are an absolute machine aficionado, and I know that you have probably one of the biggest ranges of exercise machines, probably in in North America, or even all of America, United States and Canada. So what do you think is required if you were looking at this in the context of perhaps a new studio owner or someone who's just opening their second location? What would you like to see in terms of a minimum setup for equipment?
If I was going to set up with a small area, say 5,000 square feet, which is relatively small, the first thing you get is a power rack with a bar and some plates, because that's going to give you a tremendous amount of options. I'm a big fan of the power block dumbbells. Most of the people I know in our world have a set of them, because with just a small stand, you can get 5 pounds to ours actually go up to 125 pounds, and they don't take up much space at all. So that gives you all your free weight options with an adjustable bench. Getting something like a functional trainer, which for those who don't know is a small kind of cable crossover unit that has 2 weight stacks. Again, now you're talking about 2 pieces of equipment and some dumbbells, and you could realistically operate from just that. If you're going to go into the machines, the best deals out there are on the old Nautilus and the Hammer Strength, and that's just because there's so many of them out there that you can buy them relatively cheap. I've seen entire circuits of Nautilus machines, older Nautilus machines, mind you, which I actually think are the best. 10 to 12 machines go for a couple $1,000s. So that is a very low amount of capital to put out to have commercial exercise equipment in your gym. So to kind of recap, to have a power rack with some weights and a bar, adjustable bench, dumbbells, functional trainer, and then if you're getting into your circuits, certainly getting your big compounds, the big 5, leg press, pull down, row, chest press, shoulder press, either in something like a Nautilus or a Hammer Strength. That's a pretty cool setup. And you can do a lot with it. You're not going to have to put up a ton of capital to get it. In fact, if you get stuff out of town, the shipping will probably cost more than the machines. And then you're operating, and you can do a lot from there. And then hopefully you outgrow that, and you want more options and more clients. But just with that, and I think most people in the used market could realistically do something like that for about $5,000. If you can't put up $5,000 to start a commercial business, then you probably shouldn't be getting into it at all.
Good advice. Yeah, that's great. And I would also say, for those listening, Mike and Ted Harrison, actually, who's got a facility called Vital Exercise in England, both were very helpful in helping me put together a PDF. And Mike, probably you made the biggest contribution, I'd say, in terms of a very basic guideline in looking at comparing Nautilus, Med-X, Pendulum, and Hammer Strength machines. And we only looked at the big 5 just to keep it simple to start with and get something out there to help with this. But I think that's quite a nice document to review when you're looking at figuring out what, if you are going to go down the machine route, which I think most of us start these businesses partly for that reason, because we want to be able to have access and have our clients have access to that stuff, then I think you'll find it very useful indeed. Mike, I'm conscious of time, and there's a couple of things I really, really want to cover off with you. The next thing I wanted to ask you is, one of my members is moving location, and they're very interested to know what would someone or what are others thinking about in terms of what their promotional kind of launch plan would be. Now, I'd love to hear, in terms of your new location, what does the first kind of week look like when you go live? Or is there like a period like 2 weeks before where you'll kind of sit down and plan, right, this is exactly what we're going to do? I mean, in your case, it might be a little different because you're not looking to go and get a whole load of new clients straight away because of reasons you've already described or explained. So maybe you could just comment on your viewpoint or advice on how someone should launch when they start a new facility, what they should do in terms of outreach to get new clients, that kind of thing at the start.
Well, what we're going to do, our plan was actually at first to make it so when everyone's seen the new facility the first time, we want to be 100% done. And unfortunately, due to time and weather constraints and some construction constraints, that is not going to happen for us. So we're in the process of opening the larger facility as its own standalone facility. And what we're going to do is certain days during the week, we're going to be operating down there. Certain days during the week, we're going to be operating at the Main Street gym. And we might even have trainers at both facilities at the same time. But we're going to call it a soft opening. And we're going to basically get people used to heading down to that location. But it's not going to be the full-time place, probably till after our winter, realistically. Now, if I was moving into a brand new area, an area where maybe my name and my brand isn't well known, I've seen some of the bigger franchises do this. And again, they'll go to social media, and I see it all the time. Like one of those Orange Theories is coming to the town next to me. And probably for the last 2 months, every time I've gone on Facebook, it said that this Orange Theory is coming to the town next to me. And, I can sign up for an introductory rate and this kind of thing. And that's probably the best way of doing things. Also, if you have the location, a lot of people, they get access or they get occupancy to the location before they're set up. I would put up some sort of signage at the place, assuming you have good foot traffic, as soon as possible. A coming soon sign. I've even seen bar launches where they put a top secret sign to get people talking, say, hey, what is going in there? But certainly getting it out there through signage and through social media as early as possible would be the route that I would take. Now, I've never moved more than about 20, 25 minutes geographically between facilities. So everywhere I've gone, people pretty much know who I am and what I do. But if I was, say, going to go into a different province, different state, different country, I would be using the reach of social media to get it out there.
Yeah, and I just want to comment on that. I think, what do you think about this idea? So what I think is quite a good idea to do is to have some signage that says something like coming soon, and have a really easy URL beneath that people can go to, and then just have like a very simple landing page with a space so they can submit their email address. So you have like, get notified when we open, or something to that effect, something that is going to lure the user to put their email in. And then when they hit submit, what they're doing is building up a waiting list effectively. So that when you do open, you could then send an email campaign out to all those people, as email is still something that is a very effective direct marketing tool. I don't know if you feel like that would be how successful you think that would be, or whether that's something you wouldn't bother with. I'm just curious on your opinion.
No, I think that's a perfectly acceptable way of doing things. Again, everyone has a smartphone, everyone's on their computer, so doing it all digitally is the way to go. Whether it's email or websites or social media, you want to have it all. You want to have it all integrated.
Cool. So Facebook, email, online marketing is kind of what you've covered so far. Is there anything else that comes to mind with regard to a launch plan for a new location? Anything else that you would consider in addition to that?
The biggest thing that kills these startups is the overhead. They chew off too much too quick. And don't get me wrong, we'd all like to have 100,000 square foot facility with every option under the sun, every machine under the sun, staff that covers every little thing of your business. And hey, I hope that everybody gets there. But at first, a lot of people start off with it's one person and a passion for weight training. Stay within your means. If it's just 500 square feet to start off with, then great. Make it your best 500 square feet. Try to keep that rent or that mortgage or that line of credit, whatever your dead monthly costs are, keep it low at first. Eventually, when all the income's rolling in, then you can start making some of the bigger business decisions on what you're going to do. But especially at the very beginning, keep everything as cheap as you can. Even when I look at buying exercise machines, I have, I think, over 100 now. I think I've bought 3 brand new. Everything else was in the used market. And the nice thing about exercise equipment is a lot of people are giving it away because they bought it with the best of intentions. And just like their gym membership, they never use it past the first month. So you might not be able to get the exact piece that you want, but if you want a row machine, you type in hammer strength, they made 6 or 7 different rows. Might not be the exact one you want, might not be in the perfect shape that you want, but chances are you can get one for a few $100 and it's going to work just fine. And if you service it and get it all cleaned up, it's going to probably work, for the next 20, 30 years, no problem. And just at the beginning, keep that overhead low. Overhead kills.
Overhead kills. That's a good summary line. And what about? I was also curious, with regard to your facility, Mike. Like, what is your kind of primary back end software that you really rely on to run your business?
I don't have anything like that. I know a bunch of people in our industry, they have different things that they run. I'm sure some of it works just fine, but again, I have an Android-based phone, and everything scheduling is easily built into the phone. Everything, all the different social medias, the emails, it's built into the phone. And I'm not saying that these things don't have any value, because I know a lot of people really like them, but I haven't had one problem come up that realistically I can't just solve with a typical smartphone. And a lot of times there's 100 different options on it that I'm not even aware of. And I do a quick YouTube search on, hey, how would I do this on an Android phone? And there's all these walkthrough videos of how you can set it all up. So I don't run anything specific right now. Maybe one day that will change, but as of right now, it's amazing what you can do with just free Google software.
Yeah. Interesting. And we can get so overwhelmed with tools, and some people get it can be really damaging, because either people don't take any action on using a specific tool, like maybe an email service provider or a fitness management software, something like MindBody, because there's so many options, and you don't want to make the mistake of using the wrong one. And it's interesting to hear how you've kept it so simple. And it sounds like you wouldn't necessarily take on a software tool or integrate a software tool into your business unless you saw that you absolutely had to, and it was going to add a ton of value to your business.
Yep. Anything like that. I tell people all the time, any business deal that comes your way, you always take a look at it, because you never know what's coming out. You never know who's going to develop what. Even if someone decided one day, hey, I want to buy up STG. Now, I don't really want to sell it, but I would look at any business deal that came my way, even if it was something I really didn't like or really didn't think that I would like. So I tell that to all the young entrepreneurs out there: be open-minded to just about anything, because it's always changing. All these things are changing nonstop. And even when it comes to your training protocols, read as much new stuff as you can, because you know what? I haven't read anything really new under the sun in many years, but there's always different understandings, different perspectives on it, and it's probably going to make you better to go through it. So try to keep an open mind with all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And Mike, I know you've got a hard stop at the end of the hour, and I'm just really grateful for your time. Jack's just dropped a message. I don't know if you can see it. It just says, "Got to run. Please thank Mike." So he's he's really grateful for your time as well and your contribution. So thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you doing this today.
No problem at all. You have a great one, Lawrence.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you get notified of all the new episodes we publish. Please also subscribe on YouTube, which is youtube.com/high intensity business. We usually upload the video with new podcasts, although this one does not come with a video on this occasion. And remember, get more members for your high intensity training business when you join HIT Business membership. The membership is designed to help you grow your HIT business fast. You'll get coaching from me, access to hundreds of HIT business systems, blueprints, checklists, and frameworks. You'll also get access to a great community of HIT business entrepreneurs and connect on a monthly group call with other members to help grow your business. Join now over at highintensitybusiness.com/join. And again, to find the blog post for this episode, please go to highintensitybusiness.com and search for episode 401. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.